Hey people, so this is a new meeting for us. It's a new tutorial, and it's about it's about the UV, but also a kind of brief overview of what UVs are and where they why they exist and why they are important. So so far we did a lot of modeling together, and it's yeah, we did a few assets. I think you guys have a you are kind of getting good, and you have an idea of how to create shapes and things like that in 3D. But when you do things in 3D, you know you do your model, but it's not always the case of keeping it with this color, standard gray. Um, Sometimes you want to, make it look different than this. So this is a very important topic after the 3D modeling one, because it's a whole big new universe that we are, discovering. And this is a slide presentation that I'm putting together to explain this topic, to try to make it, understandable. So, and it's called, I called it like this, but Introduction to 3D Materials, Texture, and UV Mapping. And should be also light. But I think, well, I'll fix it later, but let me, yeah, because all these things, they all work together. They are all very, you know, hand to hand. They're closely related. So I said UVs, but what are UVs? So let's take it from another perspective. So 3D materials in general, and you see this image has different spheres with you can see that they have different properties. So let's see this presentation. So after your 3D model is completed, it's time for us to make it look more, realistic or appealing. But you can also be stylized if you are after a stylized look, like more animation movies rather than VFX, realistic movies. And this is when 3D materials, UV, texture, and light come in our support. So a lot of keywords here: 3D materials, UVs, texture, and light. So let's move on. This is an image, a random image I found, and very easy to see what's going on here. We have like a kind of fortress and some trees, and the rest is, I think in the back there is a forest. I think this is on top of a hill or a mountain, and that's pretty much what we have. And there is a lot of atmosphere around it. So I break it down very easily in three. There are probably more, but let's keep it three to keep things more simple. So we have um, the leaf, because the trees have some leaves and it's gonna be a material, or a green leaf, flat if you want. And and then the stone, because the fortress is made of stone, of rocky material, so it's gonna be something similar to this one, I think. And then I see that the trees have the trunk of the tree, which is wood. So in a second we already blocked out three materials that are very different looking compared to each other. So they're very different. We have the leaf, the green of the plants, the vegetation, the wall, the rock, the rocky wall, stone wall, and the wood. That could be also here because there is a kind of scaffolding. I guess this scaffolding is kind of made of wood. So we already can see that you know we already are talking about very interesting things. So let's keep going. Yeah, three main material that convey the viewer the story you want to tell or the feeling of the different objects you have in the scene. Okay, then we are talking about something else. This is, we're talking about texture maps, and it's something we already introduced, you know, before, and it's that, fancy looking shading network that we did, and maybe some of you were a bit, confused about it, but don't worry. Anyway, let's read. 3D materials are not random. They're in fact made up of different texture maps. Texture map are basically 2D images, keyword 2D images, most of the time in a square format, but sometimes they are not, but most of the time. 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K, and even more for very high-res, shots. That will give the material, this texture map, once put together inside the software, will give the material it's the look of that material. And this is, a sphere that has some rusty metal on it. And, this material is very differentiated because we have parts of this, material that is made up of texture, and we're gonna see it later, that is very shiny, where the metal is, in the surface. And others, like the rust, that are more rough and less, shiny than the metal. And so basically this material is made up of 4 different texture maps. So the albedo, which is the color, then the roughness is basically saying to the, is basically the texture map that tells how much rough or shiny the surface of the material is. Then the normal map is a map that it's used to kind of create an illusion of bumpiness and kind of, unevenness of the surface. But when we do a practical, we will learn a bit more about it. And then the metalness. The metalness is a black and white mask like the roughness, and it basically tells the material where the metal parts are and where the non-metal parts are. And so basically is this. All this map together, once you put them together into a material and you apply that material to your geometry, they will give you this kind of result. But here I say, but this is crazy. What's all of this? I mean, this doesn't make sense. And I am breaking down the different maps. So albedo color, sorry, forget this is a fancy name. Color map, roughness map, normal map, and metalness. These are probably the 4 ones that we are gonna use the most. And so we just have to, keep in mind this one for now. There are more, a couple more probably that we're gonna use together for our assignments, but these are the 4 main ones. So this is a slide with a breakdown, and there is a brief description of all of them. So I'm not gonna read it because we need to keep going and we need to do the UV part, but this is basically a slide where you can find the meaning of these maps. And soon I'm gonna upload this slide in our shared folders of the modeling session, so you can have a look there. So basically we have color, as I said, is the color. Then the normal is a texture that give the illusion of bumpiness, unevenness of the surface. The roughness is gonna say, parts that are more shiny, like this part, and parts that are less shiny, like this one. You see how light here is very strong compared to here. So the roughness value is gonna be lower than here. And the metalness is telling where is metal, so probably it's here, and where is non-metal. Okay, so then I say, how do you put together all these maps in the CG software to make the material done? And you do it with a shader, and that's what we did together was the Arnold shader. And that's, fancy looking, node-based network that we did. Don't worry, we are gonna redo it. We have time to learn it. It's gonna be fine. You don't have to worry about it. Okay? Just follow for now. This is basically the node network looking in Maya. So, and we have these 4 maps: base color, metal, rough, metalness, roughness, and normal. And this is the node network looking like. And basically, you first need to create this material, apply the texture, and then you apply this material to your 3D model. And we will do it together later on, so don't worry. There are probably, as I said before, there are a couple of other maps that, or properties of the material that we're going to check together, like emission is when a material is made of light, and maybe also another one, but it's okay. So now we are back to the UV topic. So wait a second, there's something very important to talk about. Before you can apply your texture map to the 3D object through the shader, you will need to do something cheeky called UVs. UVs are coordinates that map a 2D texture onto a 3D model. Each point on a 3D model is given a corresponding UV coordinate, which tell the software where to place the texture on that model surface. This process, called UV mapping, allows artists to unwrap a 3D object into a flat 2D layout, apply texture, and have them display accurately in the 3D shape. Okay, don't worry if this is confusing. Anyway, long story short, if you want to apply a based image texture, a material that is based on images, like the one we checked before, this one is based on all images. These are images. As we go back together to that slide that we checked, I think it was at the beginning, I think it's, texture map are basically 2D images. So this material here is made up of 2D images. Oh, these 4 here are 2D images, and we're gonna check it later. So when we basically want to, apply those images in the material and then apply that material to our model, we need to have UVs. So the UV will tell Maya or any software, because this is working in any other software, will tell Maya how that material, how those textures are gonna be, are gonna look like in the model. Sorry if this is confusing, but we're gonna do a lot of practical and we're gonna understand what is going on here. So UVs, back to us. So this is the cube that we all did in elementary school, and it's, the one we all built, and probably the teacher, the elementary school teacher, primary school teacher gave us this, and we had to build this. We all did this. So basically this is UVs. This is the flat representation of the 3D object. But the fact is that in real life is the opposite. You start with flat and you build the 3D. In 3D we start with the 3D and then we have to make it flat after we finish the modeling part. Let's move on. So this is another example. In this image, the character is looking like this in the 3D viewport, but the UVs are like this because the character has different colors. So there is the head, the rest of the body, and the clothings. Let's move on. And then I talk about lighting, but let's skip this for a moment. Lighting is basically lighting like in real life. Imagine that you have you are in a room, and this room is full of objects, right? And all these objects are different material, like real life, in real life. And imagine for a moment that you switch the light, so you don't see anything. It's pitch black. 3D works the same. You can create your great models, make your UVs, create your materials with the texture, apply that material to the model. But then, if you don't have a light, during render time, nothing is showing. So lighting is also so important. So without lighting, you don't see anything. That's why. And yeah, after I talk about lighting, and again, this is all connected together. And yeah, this is the tutorial I've made to just get a bit comfortable about adding a light and making a render. So I will advise you guys to take a look at it. And although the material we add here don't require any texture and any UVs, they are basically preset material that works without any UV work, so it can be found without too much hassle. And yeah, so that tutorial is interesting because go through the process of creating a light, and creating some material, creating an emissive material that is all lighting up, and then creating a light to show your scene. So check it out. Now, to go back to us, let me save because I think I did some changes. Okay, so to go back to us, the cube. Remember, elementary school cube made of paper. And if we check, we have the slides as well in our 3D modeling folder that I shared with you guys. You can find the slides, and it's here, UV mapping, and then the tutorials. And this tutorial is gonna be here, present here, is 11 maybe, and the references. So you're gonna find the blue dice texture that we're gonna use now in the share folder, which is here. Here, 3D modeling, tutorials, reference, and we find the blue dice texture along with all the other texture that we used. So let's keep going. Basically, this blue dice texture, this is a texture map, and you apply it to your 3D model to make it look like a dice. Okay, so let's go to Maya. Here we have this cube. This is a random default primitive. Remember, primitive, these are the primitives, and it's a cube. So when you create it, Maya basically gives you default UVs for this. You don't have to do UVs on a cube because they are already done. If we take a look, if we go to UV editor and we display this, you can see that this cube already has UV, and the UV editor is basically the window inside of Maya that show the UV of a model, if there are any, of course. And in this case, you see that we have them. And because Maya, every time you create a primitive, you will have UVs done for that by default. So in this case, I want to make a quick demonstration of adding to this cube model a texture, the blue dice texture in this case. So I already have UVs, so maybe something will work. Let's see. So to do that, you do right click, assign favorite material, Lambert. Lambert. Let me do it again. I select the cube, right click, assign favorite material, Lambert. And in the Lambert there are a few properties. I don't want you guys to look at anything else except color. And in color there is this square checkerboard icon. If you click on it, you do File. And when you click File, you go automatically in this, File window. And let's say you click outside, you see, you lose the selection. But if you click again the cube, you can find the properties of the cube. So if we go to Lambert, again, we find the color, and then we click on this, we have the file, okay? So you can always go back, okay? You don't lose anything. It's still, everything is still there. So when you are in the file, we click in image name, we click this folder, and we go to our desktop, and we select the blue dice texture. But what's happening? Nothing is showing. Why? I have a nice texture applied to it. You need to enable texture viewport, which is this icon here. And see, already something is showing, but it looks so weird. Why? Why it looks so weird? Let's find out, guys. So we remember how to see the UVs. We go to the UV editor, and we see something now. We see that our cube, like the elementary cube, is there, but is not aligned to our texture. So let's align it really quickly. So the UV editor allows you to edit UVs, the UV of a model, allows you to create UVs, edit them, and even delete them. So in this case, I want to take this UV shell and take a look. If I do right click UV shell, I can select the shell. The shell is basically a continuous UV surface, which basically this cube is made of, is a continuous UV surface. So once I select it, I do rotate, and I want to rotate this 90 degrees. So you could just rotate it like this, or you could press J to enable snapping and rotate it. You see, you rotate it in increments. And basically, by doing this, we already have aligned most of the faces. We already have a way better result than before. Don't worry if this is not perfect, it's fine. Maybe it's just a matter of moving it a bit like this. But don't worry if it doesn't have to be perfect, okay? It's just a demonstration. So, but you see the two faces are, empty. There is no numbers. And we need to address this. So, surprise, surprise, those two faces are this. So let me go to face mode. This and this. See? And in fact are the two faces that are not over any number, any dots. So you're not gonna see anything. And the first thing you're gonna say is that, why don't we take this and move it? You can, and you're probably gonna make it work in that phase, but take a look at what you're doing in the rest. It's gonna mess up so many faces. Take a look, all of this is messed up, it's not good. So let me undo this, Ctrl Z. So we need to introduce a very important tool during UVs, and is the cut tool. Is in this window here, cut. But before you cut something, you need to select the edges that you want to cut. So if you do in the UV editor, right click edge mode, you select this edge because we want to move this and this cube over here. So we want to, detach them from the body. So I select this edge and shift left click this one, and I do cut you, cut. And now you see this white line tells us that there is a cut. Everywhere you see a thick white borders, it means that the shell is running through a cut. So in this case we have three different shells now. We have one shell, two shells, and three shells. You see, if I go to UV shell, one shell, second shell, third shell. So what I have to do is to select this and this and move it here like this. So see, it's not really perfect, Doesn't have to be anyway. Actually, I don't want to do this because we will learn when we do some substance painter that is never good to have shells that are uh, crossing each other. It's not a good habit. So when we do substance painter work, remember not to do that. Now, you could do like this and match them to the image and it's gonna work, but the proper way to do this is to introduce another friend, the sᴜ. You see, cut and sᴜ, there are two here, so we just use cut to cut away these two squares and move them. But now we want to basically you know uh, kinda sᴜ them so they are gonna be part of again one shell only. So if you select this one, you see even the other one is selected. Basically they are, they are connected in 3D space. That's why when you are in the UV editor and you select different, if you select one, you don't select only one, you select two, you see. So in this case I want to select this one and I do cut sᴜ, move and sᴜ. See, I do the same here, and you see how this highlights, but also this one highlights. They are the same. They are touching each other in 3D space, but in 2D space they are separate. Okay? So in most cases you prefer to have one entire UV shell, because make texturing a bit easier, to have everything a bit compact and together. But sometimes you really cannot, so you have to allows cut and different shells. It's inevitable. So anyway, we do the same. I select this one and I do cut sᴜ, move and sᴜ. See? So now if I go UV shell, we have only one shell. So although it's not aligning perfectly for this demonstration, this is more than enough. In the future, in the near future, we're gonna do more demonstration and more, precise UV work. But for this, it's okay. So that's everything for the cube. This is a demonstration. Don't worry if it's still unclear, that you feel a bit confused. It's gonna get easier. But in this case, this is the ABC. To summarize, UVs are a 2D representation of a three-dimensional object. UVs are essential to be if you want to apply textures to your 3D model. If you want to apply normal material preset in Maya, you don't need them like we did with the lamp. But if you want to apply texture maps to your material to make it look more realistic, you then need to do UVs. UVs are the process that happens after 3D modeling. And the way you do UVs in Maya is through the UV editor that you can find in UV editor. And different models are, of course, have different shapes, so all their UVs will look different. And primitives have default UVs, so you don't need to worry too much about it unless you want to do something very specific. And in the next few sessions we are gonna dive a bit more deeper into UVs and learn a bit more about it. But so far this is the ABC of UVs. Cheers!